Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Another page from our Writing is Therapy book. I mean, we probably could write a book if we compiled all the stories from authors who found comfort in putting their emotions on paper. This time from Izzy Freshwater, a young woman who joins us on Zoom from just outside London to talk about her book, Sunshine in the Darkness. So you had a little push, right, to get you started writing this book?
Yeah, I've never written before. My friend kind of was just like, out of all of the experiences that you've been through, you could write a book. And I never really I was just like, that's a bit silly. I didn't really think anything of it. And then I was like, wait, I actually could. And then I just decided to write a book on all of my experiences because I knew that it would help other people.
What kinds of experiences?
I suppose like traumatic experiences and stuff to do with mental health. I feel like I speak about myself, but not really. It's like I speak through my experiences. So it's not really about me. It's about how you can get through all of these difficulties by yourself. But I'm speaking through my own experiences. I don't know if that makes sense. Like depression. I was in a really, really dark place and I never really thought that I was going to be able to get out of it. And I think that a lot of people feel like that. They feel really stuck. But you can get out of it. And I'm still here now. If I didn't get out of that, then I wouldn't be here now and I wouldn't have written my book.
Okay, so how would you describe it? What kind of book is it?
Like an information book. I give you some information on the different types of mental health issues and then explain how you can change the way that you think rather than just staying stuck in what you know. I feel like a lot of people feel like they are stuck in what they know, but you can actually rewire how you think with information and knowledge.
What exactly was going on with you?
So I chose to become sober and I had been doing drugs for probably about a good couple of years every single day. And no one really tells you what that's going to be like. So you just expect it to be not easy, but you don't expect it to throw you into like this big dark pit. And I was just sleeping all day. I didn't really know what the time was, what day it was. And then it got to the point where I had to go to hospital because my mental health was really bad. And I realized no one's like going to be able to save me except me. Like I need to get myself out of this. At the end of the day, I don't have anyone around me. I only have myself and my mum. So I was like, I can't rely on my mum. So I was like, okay, I just need to like get a little task done each day. So I decided that I was going to brush my teeth every day and just get up and brush my teeth. And it was just a small task. And I was like, I'm going to do this every single day. It doesn't matter what else I do in the day. I'm just going to wake up and brush my teeth. So I did that for a couple of months. And then once I conquered that, I kept adding little things. So it'd be like brush my teeth and then do Pilates. And then I did that for a couple of months. And then I was like, brush my teeth, do Pilates, go on a walk. And I kept adding things until I felt as if I wasn't in that place anymore. And then I was like, oh, this is this is crazy because a couple of months ago I couldn't even get out of bed and brush my teeth. But now I'm here and doing all of these things. And I feel like a lot of people could benefit from this and benefit from my experience because you think that you're stuck and you're not going to get out, but you can actually do it by yourself by changing the way that you think.
Do you talk about why you were doing drugs?
Um, a little bit. I speak about some parts of my trauma and bits that I have been through. I don't like personally say I have been through this. It's quite hard to explain because I didn't want to make the book about me. I just wanted to be able to give some insight on things that I have experienced to let other people know that they're not alone and they can get through these things even though they feel really hard. Like I've experienced a lot of trauma in my life and I'm only 21 and like my sister died suicide and that kind of made me think like she felt like she was stuck in darkness. So I decided to write the book because of that as well. And also like I suppose normalizing sexual assault when you're young and then growing up thinking that is normal, but it's not. And then throughout your life, you experience that and you're like, oh, this is just normal, but it's just not. So I suppose that kind of led me to drugs because it was just an escape and you don't really know how to escape that. You just think it's normal.
Did you ever seek out any help, or did you come to these conclusions all by yourself?
I feel like I've been trying to get help for my mental health for years now, but it kind of just got to a dead end. And even now, it's still at a dead end. So I've had to literally just figure it out through experiences, which was really difficult. It was really difficult because, like, you think that these people to do with mental health and in these organizations are going to help you, but it's really difficult to get help from them. And like honestly, I think the most significant change when stopping drugs and like the one that just blew my head off the most was literally stopping alcohol. I stopped drugs and I was fine, but then as soon as I stopped drinking alcohol, it was really bad and like I wouldn't have expected that.
So would you say it helped to write about it?
Yeah, it's so like I used to have it all like floating around in my head, but like once I wrote about it and got it all out, it's not floating around in my head and I don't have to think about it.
So many people have said that. So many people going through trauma. So now what? How are you getting the word out?
So I'm trying, like, I'm on TikTok and I post videos every single day about things that are just going on in my head and like wisdom that I have on my mind, I suppose. I had a podcast, but I recently stopped that about a year ago because I just wanted to focus on myself and kind of get myself back on track. And I'm just trying to find as many avenues to, I suppose, inspire people because I think that's really important.
Is TikTok helping you generate interest in your book?
I feel like, yeah, it has actually. Like, I speak about my book, and then people click on my Instagram and then they buy my book or they comment on my post and they're like, oh, I just bought your book. It's really good. And yeah, that really helps. I feel like a lot of people around my area, they don't they don't talk about mental health. There's not that much around my area to do with mental health or anything, so it's really frustrating to be able to reach people.
Are you going to keep writing? I mean, do you think writing will be part of your experience moving forward with the rest of your life?
So I've recently started a course and it's kind of to do with business, and I'm hoping to, I suppose, use personal development in that because everything that I do, like TikTok, my book, everything is on personal development. So I'm hoping to go down that avenue and then expand that, and then everything will be interconnected. So I suppose it will help me grow in that sense, and it will be able to, my book and everything else will be able to follow.
Are you getting support, Izzy, from your friends, your family?
So I had to cut most of my friends off because they all did drugs, which was again very difficult. So I only really have my family, but they're very supportive.
So now you're working at a pub. How are you making out with that?
So it's difficult at first, but it's actually the best job I've ever had in my life. Like I always used to have jobs and then they wouldn't really work out, but that is the best job I've ever had.
That's great. So, along with taking one step at a time, would you advise writing to help people dealing with trauma?
Yeah, writing and like meditating, going outside, like spending time with people. I think writing is very important to me because if there's too much going on up here, you just write and then it goes quiet because you're getting it all out. If you just don't write, then it's going to stay up here and you'll just feel a bit crazy. I want people to hear it. I want people to be able to heal. I don't care how much it costs. I don't know what I need to go through. I just need to get it out. So I did it.
And you end up with a publisher here in the US.
Page.
And that was a good experience.
Yeah, it was very rewarding.
I'm so happy to hear that. Izzy, thanks so much for talking with me.
It's okay. Thank you for talking with me too. Bye.
Victoria Vulcano never even thought about writing until she witnessed the relationship between her dad and her daughter. Then she had to tell the story of the life of Gabriella Goosington.
I really wasn't looking to write a book. I was just actually putting some stories together or some memories together of my daughter and my dad. And it just started to flow one day. And I was trying to start from like when she was little up until now, as she's, 19. And I wanted to have something for her to always remember. So I was really just sitting at my computer one day and just writing things down. And it just started to flow into like a little story. And then I was like, oh, let me see if I can, get it printed for her. So I wasn't even really thinking that I would make a book out of it. And I just went on to Google and said, well, how would I go about turning this into like a little book? And that's when I found the publishing company and away it went. It was just something that I just happened to sit down and type up just from memory for our own personal use. That was it.
Did your father die recently?
2019.
Was it soon after that you were sitting down and
It was
writing?
probably, what are we, 2024 now? I would say it was probably maybe 2 or 3 years later, maybe 3 years later. So, yeah, my daughter and my father had the best relationship. And it was almost one of those relationships where you're like, wow, I wish I had that with my grandfather. Um, it was one of those things where, as a dad, he was a great dad, but we were never really like close as he was with my daughter. He was always busy working, raising his family, that type of thing. But as a grandpa, and not working, he had so much time. So he just loved on her and there was nothing that she could do wrong. And, he was always there to support her. And he every single day he had to speak to her and just check up on her and see how her day was and asking her how her friends were and her after school activities. So my book was basically, the support that he gave her through her life. And once I read it, I was like, wow, every child should have such a special relationship. And he would go to all of her soccer games and dance recitals. And as much as he was not into some of that stuff, but he always loved everything that she did. And he taught her like how to like enjoy cooking and baking. And, he would come down for the holidays for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was his big holiday. So he would come down and help us prep for the holiday. And he would pull the little kitchen chair over to the sink and show her how to do things. And I remember seeing them so clearly chopping stuff and baking pies. And it was just the cutest grandfather and granddaughter relationship. Like she could never do anything wrong in his eyes. No matter what was going on, she was always his special angel.
Was there a specific time or moment or event that you highlight in the book?
I think the highlight in the book was a little bit of her struggle when he had passed because she had such milestones coming up because she was fairly young. I think she was probably going in, like she was just about eighth grade. So he missed like her eighth grade graduation and he missed her sweet 16 and stuff like that. So, I wanted her high school graduation. She had promised him that she would always go to college because my dad never went past like sixth grade back then. And he said to her, you have to go to college, you have to get education. He wanted her to have a better life than he did. So for her high school graduation, it was a lot of these things were a big struggle because she felt he wasn't there to see it. And she always managed to honor him in a special way at these events. Like she had a special speech for her Sweet 16 and included him. And it was rough for her. My mom gave her his crucifix ring at her eighth grade graduation because he said he always wanted her to have it. And she couldn't, it's too big for her. So my mom put it on a chain for her to wear around her neck. And she wears it all the time, especially when she has like hard stuff going on. Like she feels that closeness to him. So it was basically like the milestones that she had to endure without his guidance and without his advice and without his help that, is like molding her into the person she is today.
Oh, that is so sweet. Oh my gosh, that brings tears to my eyes. What was your daughter's reaction to the book?
She was shocked because I have two daughters. I didn't tell either of them that I did this. So I kept it a secret for over a year. Until the books came to me. When I got the first edition of the books, I went to her college for her birthday and I gave it to her as a birthday present. Oh. And at first she was like, oh, this is cute. And she looked at the name and she was like, oh, that's what you used to call me. Because I used to call her Gabriella Goosington when she was younger. And she's like, oh, that's cute. That's what you used to call me. And then she looked at the bottom and she goes, wait, your name is on this. And I go, it's an actual book. And she was like, what? And I go, yeah, it's an actual book. You can buy it. And she was like, just completely floored. And then she read it and she cried, of course. But it's something so special to her. And I'm so glad because I said to her, I want you to have this and I want you to realize what an impact he had on your life. Sometimes you may not think about it, but when you have your own children, I want you to have that same impact on your grandchildren that he had on you. So she just was floored when I gave it to her.
Oh, where did Gabriella Goosington come from?
I just had, she usually goes by Gabby. I have nicknames for both of my children, but it was just a cute little nickname, that we came up with, and I would call her that. She was going by Gabby most of her life, but when she was a baby, it was Gabriella Goosington, and as she gets older, now she's 19, she prefers to be called Gabriella, so it changed along the way.
No more Goosington?
No more Goosington. So it's funny because sometimes every now and then I'll be like, hey Goose, or hey Goosington, or and she'll like chuckle, she has a bunch of nicknames, but now she's getting a little more mature and she likes to be called Gabriella at times.
Do you want other children to read this book?
I do. When I first wrote it and I said, oh, this is a cute children's book. But the more that when I read it, and a lot of people that I know have read it and they're like, wow, it almost from an adult standpoint, now that I'm older, my children are older, as a parent or, even a grandparent, I want people to understand that what they do can either negatively or positively impact that child's life. So I think if an adult reads it with a child or reads it before they give it to their child, it kind of makes you aware to really, watch what you do, watch what you say, and children pick up on things. They're like sponges. So, you can, it's your choice how you're going to impact a child's life. It's going to be negative or positive, and hopefully my book would be almost like a little reminder, like, wow, I hope they remember this when they get older.
Yeah,
it isn't my plan to try to get out there and promote it. My plan is to probably go around to their schools and give copies to the school and see if they read it and if they like it, if they like me to come in and maybe talk to the kids or do a story time at the library.
So you still have a relationship with the schools that your kids went to?
Yes. My youngest is still in high school. She's going into her junior year in high school, but I have a niece that lives here and she's in the school system still here. So we do have ins at some of the schools and stuff.
Well, are you going to keep writing?
I may, I do have some ideas that I may. I really did enjoy it, and it was very interesting to me to see the process that goes into making a book. I had no idea what it would entail, and it was very, very interesting. So I may do, another one and try to write one for my youngest daughter about like her experiences and stuff. Maybe not with my dad, but she's more independent and sporty and competitive. So I may do a little children's book for like her experiences next.
Great. Listen, it was great talking to you, Victoria.
Thank you. It was nice speaking with you too.
Dr. Luc M. is a cardiologist by trade, but writing poetry is his passion. The name of his book, Finding Light in Philadelphia, an anthology of philosophical poetry, Volume 1. Tell me about this light you found 12 years ago.
I find a very inspiring life, and it unlocked my poetry skills, if I can say that.
Have you always written poetry?
Yes, I've been writing poetry for a long time, but I never made the decision to put it into a book. So it starts actually very slowly. When I was in Philadelphia, I was experiencing a very challenging professional time. And at that time, I started getting inspired and writing a lot. So that's when I start writing and thinking about putting everything into a book. There were a lot of poetry I already written over time, and some were more recent.
You call it philosophical poetry.
Yes, I call it philosophical poetry because, as you know, there are different types of poetry. There are some poetry that are really descriptive. Some are expression of feeling, and some are philosophical inquiries presenting in the form of poetry. So that's basically what I wrote, in addition to some short stories.
Can you share something with me that I'm going to find in the book?
Yes, so there was one that the title was If You Have to Choose. So if you have to choose between word and silence, choose silence. So this was something that I got inspired to write that poem in 2011.
What happened?
Like I say, I was going through a very challenging time, and I was thinking a lot. And sometimes you have to go inside yourself and decide which way to go. Do you want to speak, or do you want to keep silent? Do you want to act, or do you want to take a deep breath and stay back? So those were the questions I was asking myself those days, and I wrote this poem. I will try to read it.
Okay.
So if you have to choose, blossom into life and grow strong before the storm arrives. Blossom into life and grow wise before it's time to choose. If you have to choose between love and power, choose love. If you have to choose between word and silence, choose silence. If you have to choose between revenge and forgiveness, choose forgiveness. If you have to choose between war and peace, choose peace. If you have to choose between fear and courage, choose courage. If you have to choose between hope and despair, choose hope. If you have to choose between vanity and humility, choose humility. If you have to choose between anger and self-control, choose self-control. Blossom into life and grow strong before the storm arrives. Blossom into life and grow wise before it's time to choose. So that was a poem written about 12 years ago.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you able to go out and read your poetry anywhere?
So I have not done that. I have some invitation to go and read and present, but I have not been able to do that yet because of my schedule.
I would say you're a pretty busy cardiologist, right?
That is true. That is really true.
Yeah.
That is true. Yes.
Yet people are inviting you out to talk about your book.
To talk about my book, yes.
Oh, I hope you get the chance to do it.
I'm looking forward to that.
This is volume 1, so does that mean there's a volume 2?
Yes, there is a volume 2 that has been sent for review to a publisher. It has already been approved for publication.
Great.
And hopefully it will be out by the end of the year.
Well, you're moving right along, Luc.
Yes, I write all the time.
All right. Well, listen, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheryl Duke is a professional storyteller who was disturbed by the ending of a story a friend told her. It was entitled The 10,000 Black People That Got to Heaven and basically wreaked havoc. So she wrote her own ending. The name of her book is The Music Did It. So tell me about this story.
The story ended in chaos. I didn't like that. I liked the story. I didn't like how it ended, so I wrote a sequel.
So who wrote the original story?
No one knows. My girlfriend, Sharita Scroggins, told me the story. She told it to me, that her father told her, and she told me.
Did you Google it?
I did Google it because I wanted to remember exactly how it went.
Yeah. So it just says unknown.
Yes.
How's the story go?
10,000 Black people show up in heaven all on the same day. And they brought their worldly ways with them. They complain about wearing their halos because it messes up their hairdos. Their children are swinging on the pearly gates. There's chicken bones up and down the golden streets. And they just don't get along with each other. And so Gabriel is in a pickle. He doesn't know what to do with them. So he goes to the Lord, and the Lord is like, well, Gabriel, you know, everyone's welcome in heaven. And you just have to find a way. He says, why don't you call Satan? Satan got a bunch of Black people today, too. And so he calls Satan, and Satan keeps putting him on hold, putting him in a hold. And finally he comes back and says, I don't know what to do with them either. They're trying to put my fire out and install air conditioning. And the story ends that way. And so I pick it up from there. They've already created all this disharmony, and Gabriel has to find a way to do it. One thing they all have in common is their love for music. And so he uses music to form a bridge. And so by the end of the story, they're all singing together in harmony.
What happens?
Well, they have to form two choirs. And these two choirs have to get along with each other. They have to learn to sing with each other. Some sing too loud, some sing too low, off key, some try. Everybody wants to do a solo. So he's got to get these choirs to work together. And then in the end, they had to pick a song. They had to come up with a song that encompasses all the different types of music, and they had to sing it together. And when they finally get it together and they sing before God and all the angels, and when they get done singing, all of heaven stands up and applauds.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So that's how.
And they get in, right? They get in?
Yeah.
Everybody gets in.
Yeah. I may do some other stories about them, but that's how that one ends.
What made you feel compelled to end this story?
Well, when my friend told it to me, I liked it so much. I thought it was really funny, but I just thought that it showed Black people in an unfavorable light. that we are just, a bunch of inharmonious people. We don't get along with each other, and we can't even get along, and we made it to heaven. So that bothered me. So that's why I rewrote the end. When I was writing this story, I didn't want to offend anyone by writing the story about heaven, number one. But I think just like when the angels rebelled, well, people, when we get to heaven, I don't think we're automatically changed into these holier than thou beings. I think we bring our baggage with us, and we slowly learn to let that stuff go. Because if the angels can rebel, people can rebel too. So we're no different. And that's why I gave them qualities that we have here on earth, because when you get there, you still have those same qualities. The only difference is you're dead now.
Yeah.
Why, I wrote it like that. And maybe that's why I like the original story, because they were human. They were dead humans, but they still had qualities that we have that can change.
Right. Did you ever write before this?
I'm a professional storyteller, and I've been telling stories professionally for a long time. And I go to schools, library, churches, parties, community meetings, and I tell stories. If I'm at a grade school telling stories to children, then I'm going to tell stories that have character developing stories about behaviors that they may be doing that need to change. Sometimes I'll tell stories to scare them. I've done stories at Halloween parties, and I just tell scary stories. But these are stories that I heard from other people. And I used to belong to a group of storytellers in Minneapolis, and we were hired to tell stories all over the place. And they were stories that we heard, or stories about ourselves, or stories that we made up to fit the occasion.
What a great profession.
It was a lot of fun, but it also you have an obligation when you're telling these stories, that your stories have meaning, that your stories won't embarrass your audience,
right,
but will encompass them. When I'm telling a story, I rely on the energy that I'm getting from my audience. And so I try to do things or say things that are going to make them laugh or pause or think, so that I can pull on that energy.
So this will be a good story to take out there.
Yeah, I've told it a couple of times. I've told the first one, and then I've told my sequel, and they seem to enjoy it. People are enjoying it. So I hope I didn't do this in vain. I mean, I've never done this before. It's a new experience. Some days I feel overwhelmed by it all. Hopefully, I'll go into schools. I'll go into churches, community centers, libraries, wherever anyone would have me. I'm willing to go. Sometimes I set it up myself. Sometimes people call me and ask me, could I do this? And then they tell me what they're looking for, and I'll try to find stories that will fit that occasion. Like Martin Luther King's birthday, I told stories at a church about his childhood. And then later, I ended it with his speech. I've done puppet shows where I've had to learn puppetry, but I also had to learn Bob Marley's songs because they were part of it, and I had to recite them. Different parts of the show.
Well, Cheryl, you going to keep writing since you are a storyteller?
Yes, I am. I have many stories in my head. I have other stories that I've written that are on my computer. I just don't know what to do with them yet. This is the experience that's going to teach me, how to go about this. This is a complicated business. I had no idea how the phone calls that I would get, the things that I need to think about now. I just thought you write a book, you put it out there, that's the end of it, people buy it, but that's not it. It's just the beginning.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. It is.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work. A lot of work.
It's writing and rewriting and editing, and it's a unique story, I'll say that.
Thank you.
All right. Cheryl, it was great talking to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was great talking to you, and thank you for inviting me.
You got it. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.